Of the top 30 developed countries in the world, the American students come in at number 23. And I'm not just talking about any American student. I'm talking about the top 5% of American students. The cream of the crop, the best America have to offer. When it's put up against other developing countries, the top 30 developed countries, we come in at number 23. And that's not all. Only 30 to 35% of American students, 8th grade students, are reading on the 8th grade level. They're not just not reading on the 8th grade level, they're not doing the science on the 8th grade level, or they're doing math on the 8th grade level. Despite the fact that since 1971, we've increased our spending in education. In 1971, we spent $4,300 a year on a child. Now we're spending over $9,000 a year per child, which is more than double, which is not a problem if it's yielding results, but it's not, which leads me to my topic of discussion today. Today I'm going to be talking about the failure of the American education system. I'm going to talk about why it's failing, I'm going to talk about what real education is, and I'm going to talk about why I feel the need to open up my own African-centered charter school. Now, the charts and the graphs and the figures that you'll see today come from a documentary, Waiting for Superman. It came out in 2010, and it won an award for Best Documentary of the Year at the Sundance Film Festival. Now, why is our education system failing? Dr. Robert Banford was charged with the responsibility to answer this question. They said, why are our school systems failing? Why do our children score so low on the test scores? So he studied the school system and found out that we had over 2,000 dropout factors. What he called a dropout factor was a high school where only 40% of the students were graduating, and out of the 60% that did graduate, only 30% was reading on grade level. And he determined that poor elementary schools and poor middle schools was funneling poorly educated students into high school where they was lasting 1 or 2 years and dropping out. And why was our elementary schools failing? Why was our middle schools failing? In America, we have a thing called tracking. Tracking was based on test scores, supposedly. If you scored high on a test, you would be on a high track, which means the curriculum would keep you reading on grade level. So when you graduated, you would be reading on grade level. And if you got funneled on the lower track, if you did graduate, you still would have been a year or two behind because the curriculum didn't stress achievement. And what that led to was a gap in the achievement between the rich and the poor. Now, the American education system did all it could to close the gap, but it couldn't, which confirmed what the people who invented the tracking system believed. They said that poor people just couldn't learn. But then came along a brother by the name of Gregory Canada. Gregory Canada was a graduate of Harvard University. He opened up his first charter school in New York in the poorest and the worst performing district it was in Harlem. He had 97 square blocks that he was teaching, and within a few years he not only closed the education gap between the rich and the poor, he busted, he exceeded it. The kids from his school, KIPP Academy, not only did they close the gap, they beat all the other students in the world as well. He had a different model of teaching. He didn't ascribe to the model that America used, this sit still and listen model of teaching. He used the call and response technique. He converted a lot of his curriculum into rap songs because he knew the children couldn't remember their spelling words, but they can remember a whole Lil Wayne rap song. So in this technique, he turned the whole community around, which leads me to my last point. Why do I feel I need to open up my own African-centered charter school? When you look at the achievement gap between the rich kids and the poor kids, and the American education system not able to close it, leads me to two conclusions. They either didn't want to close the gap or didn't know how to close the gap. Either answer is not acceptable. And if you look at the tracking system that we have in America, it disproportionately funnels black kids into the low track. This is why we have the predominant majority of dropout factors in our neighborhoods, which are leading our kids straight to prison. And then lastly, the black dog, white dog test. On CNN and Anderson Cooper 360 on May the 17th in 2010, they revisited the experiment, the black doll, white doll experiment that Dr. Kenneth Clark did in 1940. He was trying to judge the effects of racism on the perception of children. And what he come to find out that 63% of African American children prefer white dolls over black dolls. That's internalized racism. That's internalized self-hatred. And you can't advance nowhere with that type of thinking. This is why I felt the need to start my own African-centered charter school so I can get them the proper education of self. Now the video that most of this information comes from is Waiting for Superman. And this is the link to which you can find it. I would implore all of you to watch it. Thank you very much.